All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out. We got people on LinkedIn live stream. We got people in ArtGate, and this is our first ever Ether Engage. Super excited about it. And Colton and I had an overview of what we were talking about yesterday, and I think it's going to be really helpful and really inspirational for everyone that attends. So we'll get started. I'll do a quick intro. My name's Justin. I'm founder of, and I'll just stick with founder of Ether. We do build interactive experiences for brand engagement, and then also integrate data flow and re-engagement strategies for brands. I've been doing this for 15 years, building tech for brands and entertainment space, and we recently started Ether this year, and we're really excited about where things are going there. So I used to work at an agency called Salt. They just got an award. I want to give them a congratulations. One of the fastest growing agencies. And was it the world or Canada?
It was in the world, second fastest growing large size agency globally. We were super excited by that. Also surprised just based on kind of our employee population growth. We thought we might be like small, medium, but it was super exciting for us to see that come through ad agency.
Amazing. Congrats on that, Colton, and the rest of the team at Salt. I'll use that as a gateway to introduce everyone to Colton Horner.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Always love connecting with Justin, and our paths crossed together for a few years at Salt, and then beyond have been working together through his new endeavor in Ether, which is a super exciting company, and love kind of everything they're doing. I'm a digital director at Salt. Salt is an agency in Canada and the US, and we have some offices in Australia and some other satellite offices in Europe as well. We're 5 years old. We're independently owned, and we're kind of uniquely a full service agency where we have in-house teams for a whole bunch of different services. So we're kind of your one-stop shop for clients, where we do media services, creator influencer services. We have an in-house studio, a digital team, obviously great kind of account and project management team. We run a lot of different event business as well in the XM space. Our founders were prior kind of president CEOs of Mosaic Worldwide, so have a great ton of experience there. From a digital perspective on our team, we do the full gambit of digital, excluding media. We think about things like augmented reality, virtual reality, app development, website development, e-commerce, SEO, analytics, kind of everything under the sun. What's really kind of becoming big for us right now is immersive experiences. So how can we use technology to create brand immersion and drive time spent within a brand versus, necessarily kind of the old world of impressions. And so have a lot of great clients here. Some of our clients are Coca-Cola, Labatt, Anheuser-Busch in the US, Sephora, Kraft Heinz is a big one, RBC, Xbox, and quite a few others. And so we've been lucky enough to build a great portfolio of clients, and a lot of that has to do with what we do in-house, but also some of the amazing partners we have, like Ether and beyond. So excited to be here, excited to kind of chat through some of my experience and the topic of the session we have here.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely Colton's a good fit for our whole goal around exploring the future of brand engagement. Getting into things. So I would love to focus at the start on why data matters. There's a lot of talk about tech companies, big companies, focus on collecting data and understanding why people do things in the way they do them. A lot of brands really miss the nail on the head there because they don't understand. They collect data, but they don't know what they're doing with it. So would love to hear your perspective there, Colton. I know there's a lot of studies out there that are saying that digital activations will see 3 times higher engagement rates, and along the way, a lot of these activations are capturing first-party data and zero-party data. What sort of competitive edge do these brands get when they're collecting first party and zero party data? Before we get into it, would love to have you give the audience, for people who aren't quite as immersed in the world that we are, what is first party data and zero party data, and then what's the value for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first party data is, collecting information about your consumers, whether that's done through forms on websites or various different tactics. It's about collecting data points and information about your consumer that you can then theoretically and practically use afterwards to target them in more personalized way. And so I think COVID was a very interesting time. If I go back a couple of years, where there was a lot of talk about cookieless world at that time, and there were some brands that were focusing on collecting first party or owned data about their consumers, and we found in our industry that COVID really accelerated that for some traditional marketers who potentially weren't prioritizing that in the past. And so a lot of brand marketers through COVID started to invest more dollars into, and time and energy and creative thinking into collecting data and being able to build a consumer profile, because the world had shut down and this was their best way to connect in a personalized way with them, because there was no kind of in real life connection that they could make. And so through that, a lot of our clients started to find the value and the competitive edge in it. For me, when I think about why this question in terms of interactive digital activations see higher engagement rates, there's a couple different things. The first one is being where your consumers are. Everyone has a phone in their pocket, a computer now, and it's very important for brands to show up where your consumers are and be in that place versus trying to push them to somewhere else. And I always found that that's kind of the most important way to drive engagement, is to engage them when they're already on their phone there. And why it's important is you do see a lot higher engagement rates. It gives you kind of a strategic advantage of owning and learning more about your consumers firsthand versus buying data from a third-party source. So you can go out there and be purchasing data about what you think your consumers are, but you don't own that data and you're not able to really validate and understand it completely. And so the strategic advantage to collecting your own data is having that one-to-one connection with the consumer, and owning that data. It reduces your reliance on things like third-party cookies. I mentioned kind of the cookieless world that was big talk, years ago. And now whenever you land on a website, you're asked 3 different questions before you can actually enter that website, which is a symptom of legislation and privacy and compliance changing, specifically, GDPR in Europe, and council compliance and other types of legislation in Canada as well. And so capturing that data can really allow you to learn more about your consumer and then tailor different campaigns, different creative, different events, different messaging. All of the different channels you have through advertising become hyper targeted to who your consumer is.
That's great. Now, can you give some examples on where you've, and we don't need to have a brand tied to it or something like that, but just a actionable strategy that someone could use with their data that they've collected, going beyond the initial brand engagement there?
Yeah, I think a lot of brands undervalue the importance of CRM and ECRM being email marketing, and it's kind of was the stepchild that was forgotten about for a while as we got into kind of the 2010s, and through our experience across multiple different brands and quite a few of those ones I mentioned in our portfolio up front, we typically find success in capturing first party data on site at events, whether that be specific branded events, whether it's at a Bud Stage, a Lollapalooza, a music festival where we show up a lot, or perhaps it's an activation at the top of the mountain at Whistler. And when we collect that first party data, we're able to learn, about those consumers based on where they came from. So we know potentially if someone was at Bud Stage for a country music concert, we can start to make some assumptions and build a profile about them and send targeted, communications to them. Whether it be, selling some merch that's related to country music. Maybe there's an alcohol brand that skews higher towards them, and we're able to send them promotions or coupons based on us knowing they were at Bud Stage. Let's say, in the Whistler example, the obvious answer there is, talk to them about skiing, snowboarding. There might be more, outdoors related, those types of things. And when you get them into a CRM curriculum and you're able to have that email conversation with them, we find significantly higher conversion rates, being able to target that content directly for them. And we've done that in all of those examples, which is why they came to mind, where we've run events in Whistler. We have a ton of activations that happen at Bud Stage. And so there's lots of different ways to engage them. But as a first step, email is always a great place to start, especially if you're able to shorten your time frame of when you talk to them. So if you're able to collect, an email, a first name, last name, maybe a few questions about their experience at Bud Stage, you can chat. And Bud Stage is a concert venue in Toronto. You can talk to them quite quickly after that about something that's very relevant to them.
Love it. Yeah. So I think having understanding of the geography and where their interests are, and capturing that data, you definitely get that when you build these experiences.
Absolutely.
Actually, 37% of marketers only feel confident in their ability to turn data into actionable insights, which is pretty crazy because it's like, I think it's pretty obvious. It's easy to sell to somebody if you know what they want. And the more you can understand who that customer is and what they want, it'll make things a lot easier for marketing towards them beyond the experience there. And then, so looking at the activations that you guys have done at Salt and we've done together, we really lean into gamified experiences, augmented reality, things that are really interactive, engaging, and immersive for the customers and to allow people to get involved with the brand. We've noticed that gamified experiences can boost rates by 45% on average for data capture. What's sort of a secret to designing interactive campaigns that make people excited to share meaningful and accurate information in your data captures?
Yeah, gamification is a huge one, and it's coming back in a big way. There was a term in the early 2000s called advergaming, which was kind of in this space, and it kind of became like a bad word at that time because it was overused, and brands moved away from kind of mini games, arcade style games. But as technology has developed and smartphones have continued to push on further, and tablet use is up, and a new generation is kind of coming into target markets for a lot of brands. We're finding a big resurgence in gaming driving a value exchange. So the biggest challenge to getting a consumer to submit any sort of data or personal information so that you're able to learn more about them is providing them with a valuable or tangible outcome to doing that. And it's the hardest part about this whole topic is how can you encourage somebody to want to give you some information. Gaming has done that in a big way. A lot of that has to do with prizing, in part, and that's not to say that contest prizing and like random draws, drive the highest engagement. What we've been finding a lot of success with is community and connection based games where we actually have people, fans of a brand, maybe they're attending an event or could be agnostic of location, competing against each other via like a leaderboard, and then those leaderboards really become the what dictates the prizes that we give out, and that continues to drive very successful repeat engagement for us, where we see single people coming back and playing a game 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, because they feel that kind of competition and they want to win the prize, and they're spending more time within a branded game to do that. And so that's a strategy we've been following a lot recently, and if you're able to do that and connect people via their devices with each other, that's a huge win as well. We actually just did a large event for a major bank in Canada, and it was one of their galas where they have all the employees from their particular region come out for a dinner and drinks and maybe dancing afterwards, and they came to us with a brief which was, how do we drive connection between people in the room? How can we, have them spend time with our brand? And how do we ultimately get them excited about something on that event night? And so we developed a pretty simple trivia game, but we required them to be in a lobby with some other people around them, whether that was people at their table, whether that was a group that they found. And then they were actually competing together as a group for this prize or this outcome. And the average time spent for guests, there was like 300 to 400 guests there, was 10 minutes, which is an insane metric, high, very high. And I'd say it's a bit of an anomaly there. But that was a great example of, seeing people kind of connect together, playing within a branded experience. And there's other times where we use games to keep somebody engaged with a brand while they're waiting. So, for example, you might come into an experiential or an event-based experience, and we might be giving something out, or you might be waiting for a sample of a drink that's coming out or a new craft product or whatever that might be. And if there's a lot of excitement around it, there is going to be a line and you're going to have to wait. And how do you keep people engaged with your brand while they're waiting? And we've used a lot of mobile games for that, where people standing in line can kind of play with their friends around them or just compete by themselves on their phone. And recently we've also started to add queue management into gaming experiences too, where if you're coming up and waiting for something, you can tap a QR code or an NFC tag or whatever you want to launch the game. And by playing the game, that holds your spot in line for something that's coming up. And so, when it's your turn, you'll get a notification that, it's time to go up to the counter to engage with whatever we're doing. And we found a lot of positive sentiment in doing that. So people aren't waiting around and they really have a positive experience. They're not coming back and saying, hey, X brand was doing this thing, but they made me wait like 40 minutes for it or 30 minutes for it. So that's something we're finding very effective.
Really cool. Yeah, I remember the days of how many activations I've skipped or not wanted to go and try out because there's a long lineup or whatever, like it's just not as accessible. So if there was a way I can just tap in, go wait, get a notification when it's my time, and then go check it out, definitely will make those accessibilities more, or those activations more accessible along the way.
Yeah.
Really
And
excited.
just to go back to, I know you mentioned it, Justin, but something I wanted to mention too, and it was really kind of smart what you said there, which was only I think the stat was 37% of marketers feel confident in their ability to turn data into actionable insights. And it's a really key thing just to pause on there, which is, the journey really just starts after you're able to collect data, right? That's step one. It's difficult, and you need to be smart about and creative about ways to collect data, to build your databases, your CDPs, your CRMs, and it is essentially useless without any action following that. So, if any brand says, hey, we've got a million, customers in our database, our question is always, how are you activating that database? What are you doing? What's your framework to activate them? How are you using and leveraging that data in a positive way to drive ROI, to drive engagement? And so it's really important for brands to have a plan on what to do with that data, and to have a role for a person to help them activate against it. I think with the emergence of AI, it's becoming a lot quicker to be able to turn insights based on the data you've collected into kind of like actionable items, because your AI can analyze data and segment data significantly faster than a human can. And in doing that, you're able to be more dynamic, be more personalized, be more creative, potentially even predictive about what your audience is looking for. And it'll also allow you to, test and iterate. Once you might have an insight, you might build a campaign based on the data that you've collected, and you've built a segment. You might say, okay, I think our target for this product is moms or parents, age 30 to 45, who are also dog lovers. And through that, you can then run, some A/B tests on creative, and that will allow you to learn more about what resonates with them as well. Maybe they like an image that this sounds granular, maybe a bit silly, but it's the type of detail that you need to think about, which is maybe we find a photo of a family, on a beach with 3 dogs to perform X well, but then when you post a picture of a puppy and maybe a child, that performs significantly better because it resonates more with that specific 30 to 45 target. They look at it, they click on it more. And so very quickly you can start to then iterate on that better performing creative. You can think about different formats that might be a good fit for that. You can build out a whole bunch of different types of creative methodologies of how to then kind of pursue that. So I just wanted to comment on that quickly, Justin, because I know you mentioned it, but I wanted to double click.
Yeah, the data really helps shape every aspect of the marketing journey. So segmentation and targeting of your customers, personalization of the content that you're delivering to them. So even across social media, you're going to be able to shape the content that you're putting out there to have it tailored to your audience, and be able to create different audiences within the social media as well and target them there, which is really exciting on how you can really go from there. As a consumer, I look at it as everyone's like, oh, they're always listening, they're always collecting my data, they know exactly, they're selling me ads that based on what they're listening to me on my phone, but realistically, it's cutting out the annoying ads. So if you look at it, I don't have cable anymore, but you have to watch a bunch of commercials that aren't tailored to you, and if you don't have that experience. Somebody's got some tunes in the background. Don't know what's going on. Is that Carlos there? Are you?
There he goes.
It's not me.
There we go. All right, thanks. So yeah, the consumer experience is becoming more pleasurable too, by being advertised and marketed to, because there's this data in the back end that personalizes everything for them. And then the gamified side too, if we look at it from a psychological perspective or even neurological perspective, games are driving dopamine when you're playing them. So there's instant rewards, whether it's like the sound of you getting a coin or a pop-up that comes up that says congratulations. You're constantly being fed in this virtual environment dopamine, which creates a extremely positive psychological connection to the brand, especially when I'm going in. Just as an example, if I was playing a Coca-Cola game, I'd be going in, I'd play the game, I beat a level, and then literally it's Coca-Cola giving you a pat on the back and creating these really deep connections with the brand from a psychological level there.
Agreed. And we even think about how when we're designing not only games, but when we're working on like UX and our user experience and our layouts for all kind of our digital experiences, we think about each step of that journey as being a step closer to some sort of a reward. And the reward might be something that's like super trivial and it's nothing, but how do we minimize steps that someone is taking in the journey so that each time they move, they're kind of getting some sort of value back from us. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, and so a lot of our UX now is, and it has always been about, minimizing, clicks and steps. So that's the foundational point of it. But then within that, it's what is the reward for each step? What are you getting new? What is interesting? What's going to be more relevant to you? Why did you click through? What are you seeing on the other side that's important? And it's to your point, it's about that psychology of dopamine or kind of rewarding users. And it most often isn't something that's a very huge reward, but it's those little things, as you mentioned in the game example, where it's like collecting a coin. And you can think about designing websites, apps, and other digital experiences in that same way. And we're finding right now a lot of success in that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Cool. So we started off understanding the data and why we're doing these experiences. We've explored what the value is of creating these experiences. We've looked at what these experiences can be and how they're shaped. The next step is what happens after the experience. How do we measure that they're successful? 84% of consumers say personalized experiences make them more likely to engage with the brand. But what sort of key metrics are on the back end there that you're looking at that brands should track and measure to understand the success of a digital activation?
Yeah, absolutely. And being kind of a data nerd myself, and I think, all of us kind of here in the room and chatting and listening probably are in that same boat, or at least interested in learning more, is I always err to the more the better from a dashboard perspective. The more that I can see, the more data points I can collect, the stronger my insights will be, and the more stories and creative concepts and approaches that I can shape. And I think I know that the advertising world and the marketing world, since the kind of takeover of digital media over the past 20 years, started as an impression and kind of a like market, where we were fighting for eyeballs, we were fighting for clicks in the context of likes, whether it be social media or outside. But really now what we focus on the most is two key things, and there's a couple others that I'll mention, but the two things are engagement rates. So how are those impressions and clicks, converting into brand engagement? And as we define engagement for us and for me, really that means how much time are we able to get consumers to spend with a brand? Knowing that our attention spans are of that or less than a goldfish, which I think is somewhere between 4 and 6 seconds, is how much time we have to capture someone's attention as we're in kind of the scrolling world right now. Is if you can drive more than a minute or 2 minute time spent with a brand, that's a ton of value for that brand as you're immersed within it. If you think about 2 minutes of especially if you're watching a YouTube video, 2 minutes might seem like forever, especially if your friend is showing you something and you're watching it and you're like, I don't even know what I'm watching here. I don't care about it. It can feel like it takes forever. But if you can have someone and some consumers forget about time and spend, 2 minutes, 3 minutes in that example of that bank, 10 minutes with a brand, that's when we can get our clients to be very excited. And then, going back to the gaming example as well of having prizing and leaderboards, having repeat visits are hyper critical for us too. And I think those are the two most important things that I see. But I also, there's also value in, the ultimate outcome is being able to take those engagement metrics and tie them directly to a sales conversion. And there's certain industries and certain types of marketing where that's easier than others. So for example, e-commerce sales is a lot easier and necessary to track where a person was coming from. You can pixel tag them so you know what media they saw that drove them to your website to buy the pair of gloves. If they came back and they bought something else, a lot of our business being in that bridge space between online and offline or IRL and URL, it becomes more challenging to connect ROI to an event experience. So if I've gone to Rolling Loud, which is a hip hop music festival, and I've interacted with Coca-Cola and I tried a product there, it's challenging then to track that to an in-store grocery sale or a convenience grocery sale like a CVS or up in Canada at a Sobeys. And so where we're spending a lot of time experimenting right now is in a new, not super new space, but a form of analytics called spatial analytics that's allowing us to actually get digital analytics from real world events and then using that to send to our clients' databases and be able to actually track the journey from event straight through to purchase. And it's been a big gap in kind of the event marketing space for quite a long time now, is how can you actually show that ROI, and it's all we're super excited to always be able to measure our different activations in concrete ways, and we think that that's super important. And so there's a ton of different types of data that are out there. It'll be up to the marketer to ultimately decide what's most important to them based on their KPIs, based on who their client is, based on what their objectives are. For us and for me, time spent, repeat visits, and then if you can, complete that journey to ROI to a sale, that's our North Star.
Yeah. That's great. And yeah, like with Ether, we've been really doing a lot of research and connecting with our agency partners and just understanding where their problems are in serving their clients and connecting with brands along the way. And it's constant that attribution is like one of their biggest issues in offline types of events. So being able to track, okay, how many users came to this event, how many users looked at my logo at this event, or how many users have engaged in this event. And it's these digital platforms offer you a new way of tracking things. So as we see, we got our Gate platform here. There's really cool tech on the back end where we can understand where everybody's looking in time, how much time they're spending looking at it. So we have the Ether logos up on the wall there. There's a tracking analytics in the back end that's noticing how many times everybody that's in this space is engaging with the logo and being able to see it. And then using that, we can tie that data into the user's ID and everything that we've had collected based on them using the platform. This allows marketers to really understand the value and the ROI of the activations that they're building. And we're really excited about being able to offer that new perspective and understanding of how people are engaging in a spatial world there, which is really exciting. So, Colton, I asked you this question yesterday, and I'd love to explore it again. If you were looking at the ideal dashboard, how does that look, and how would you shape it? I know it doesn't matter like what tool we're looking at for it, but like what sort of information is there that's going to really stand out to you and your clients as well?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's an easy one to answer and a challenging one in practice, depending on who your dashboard partner is and also where your data sources are coming from. But for me, a single source of truth is the most effective dashboard, where you're not kind of segregating your different data sources into different areas and looking at a whole bunch of different reports, but being able to pull things like media insights, sales insights, web engagement insights, social insights, real world insights all into one place to paint a clear picture is super important, because there might be stories and insights that you're thinking about and looking at in one place that conflict with, you might be looking at something in social media and you're able to develop a great insight. This type of person is really liking this, so we're going to build and invest some budget against targeting them. But if you're not looking then at, if you're a D2C brand, if you're looking at your e-commerce and your sales data, and that target isn't converting a ton of sales for you, or maybe they are converting a ton of sales, then there's decisions that you have to make based on both those sources, or else you might end up allocating budget in a completely wrong place, or it might not need it. You might need to invest more. And the same is true of, again, media or web traffic as well. And so for me, as I mentioned before, having more and all in one place is super critical to being able to make informed decisions, especially when you're making large decisions about budget. I think that's critical.
Fantastic. Yeah. And it's always, there's always so many different aspects along the customer journey where it's like, what happened? Like, why did we have so much drop off on an email, or why did we have this here? Why was none of the phone calls converting? And being able to have every piece of data available will allow you to analyze it and come up with effective solutions to resolve those issues. Moving forward, so emerging technologies like AR, VR, WebGL, AI are redefining what's possible in experiential marketing and marketing in general. So what role do you see these tools playing in creating activations and engaging customers while delivering measurable results?
For me, the difference is when these technologies first came out, and especially in the past 2, 3, 4 years with the emergence of consumer-facing or available AI, is the difference between novelty technology and applied technology. And kind of how I define that is, novelty is something that's fun to use. It might drive some brand engagement, but there's not a defined outcome or a super defined purpose for it. And then, applied technology is designed for a specific reason, for a specific outcome, and with a goal in mind. And I think, 5+ years ago, we used technology in type of...
Sorry, we got 2 dogs here today, so.
No worries, man. No worries. And so we used to, create and use these technologies like AR, VR for the sake of doing them, because consumers love them. They were like, oh, this is very cool. I want to do it. I want to go into, your VR world. I want to mix kind of reality and imagination. I want to just see what kind of AI can come up with and see if I can break it and what weird things I can do for it. And that was very effective for a time and for a period. And we were able to drive a lot of brand engagement and time spent, as I mentioned, on that, because people were interested in them. But as these technologies become a little more known, we find that the best way to use them is an applied way. So I'll give you 3 different examples. The first one being, and this was not done by us, but was something that I saw was, Dyson vacuums, kind of your leading high price point product in that category, used a web AR platform where you could mount your phone on the vacuum and actually see through AR, what parts of your room you have vacuumed or not, with the goal of helping you to clean your house better. And I thought, while not the sexiest thing that I've seen, for people who care about that, which is everyone theoretically who owns and has invested in one of those vacuums, they want to make sure they have a very clean house. There's a really smart way to do that. Another example is kind of image recognition technology. I was at last year a hackathon at Google in Toronto, and we were chatting about how to use in an applied way kind of AI, image recognition, all of these great things that you have access to on your phone. And one of the use cases that they were working through was, how do you take a picture or run your camera looking at your fridge and have it recognize what ingredients you have there and give you an output of a whole bunch of different recipes? Or how does it help you with your shopping list? How does it help you with nutritional forecasts? All of those kind of things, which again, doesn't sound super sexy from a marketing standpoint, but for a consumer like me, I'm like, hell yeah, that's awesome. I don't want to think about what I'm cooking for dinner because I just worked for 10, 12 hours. I just want to turn my brain off and have someone tell me what to do. And so that was a really interesting use case as well. And then something that Justin and I actually worked on together was one of our clients who was a massive kind of music sponsor for festivals across Canada, kind of every single music festival across Canada. They wanted to drive people's exploration of the festival grounds and have them moving around, discovering new areas, finding new vendors, finding where merch was easily. And so we created, Pokemon Go style, eighth wall, similar to eighth wall powered experience that was a scavenger hunt, where we gamified, people going around and kind of collecting. You'll remember, and I'll date myself, like way back to Tony Hawk days, which is like collect skate, where you'd go through the level and try to spell out the word skate, but you go through and play all these different games and then you would get rewards based on them. And after the first day of the festival, when people kind of became familiar with, what the activation was, the next day we literally had people lining up before the gates were open and then running around trying to collect everything as quick as they could. And it was a great outcome for client, just seeing people run around the festival grounds with their phone, getting to different areas. And, it was a really great applied use of that. And so those are 3 examples that I found that kind of showcase a bit of the difference between novelty and an applied application.
Yeah, those are all great examples, and yeah, like AR is very. I find with different campaigns, it's always been the more accessible approach, but VR is another opportunity that we haven't quite worked on anything together yet, but. Where VR shines is in the educational space. So educating people about whether it's the history of your brand. What's happening is you're shutting someone off from the rest of the world. So they're traveling into this space. Now they can be connected in the social space in VR, and like as we have here in Artgate, people are connected through a VR headset. But if you have these almost like siloed experiences. People are hyper focused, and they're seeing studies are showing that there's like 90% retention rate and things like that based on VR usage and VR education. So I'm excited to see how brands can start using VR more as well in their activations to really educate their customers from beyond these emerging technologies. Also excited about how AI is going to start shaping the way we use the data that we've been collecting all these years. So just as you mentioned early on, Colton, that AI can move 100 times faster than a human can on segmenting data for everyone, and really understand and build personalization around who the customers are. And as that starts to become more and more prevalent and the tools to become more available, it's going to be really exciting how we're going to take these really cool, exciting emerging technologies and give it a platform to drive value for the brands and deliver ROI across the board. Yeah, that's great. So moving forward, we got a few more minutes left as we go. But so by 2025, 70% of marketers plan to focus more on creating immersive brand experiences. How can these agencies and brands stay ahead of the curve and future-proof themselves to evolve with consumer expectations?
Yeah, this is a good one, and it's something that I coach my team and anyone I talk to on this subject on as well. And a great piece of advice that I got early on in my career, it was actually while I was interviewing for a job. I always use those interviews as a learning moment for myself, not only for the person to learn about me, but for me to learn from them. And I like to always ask a question kind of at the end of those interviews, about something in the industry. And it seems obvious, but the kind of the managing director of Critical Mass, once told me, at the time I was an account guy, and he was like, as an account person, I need you to be staying on top of exactly what you just said, emerging technologies, what's going on in the world. And so the simple piece of advice was never stop learning. And that was kind of like my mantra that I put on my resume for years, never stop learning. And it's critical, and you need to be deliberate about this. You have to go and seek out the knowledge and proactively look for it, or else you are going to be, left behind in a lot of ways. And at Salt, we coach a lot of our whole agency on about that on AI, about using it, playing around with it in your spare time, seeing what it can do. So I think, one thing I'd recommend is going out there and trying all of the tools. There's a ton that are available for free. So go out there, see what you can do, see what's available. I sign up to a lot of different newsletters that are sent out from different industry leaders on different types of topics. So I'm big into kind of reading those to stay on top of things. LinkedIn is a big one. I follow some LinkedIn, I'll use the word influencers, but business leaders there as well. And different publications too. But one of the key ones for us is, with kind of the scale of our business, we're always inherently going to be behind the curve on some specific technologies because we don't have the time to dedicate to learning, as Justin just said, and educating ourselves about VR, for example. I'm never going to be more knowledgeable than Justin about VR. And so we heavily lean on a lot of our core partners to help us stay on top of things, and our trust and kind of our faith in them is a big part of that. And Ether being within that portfolio, I'd like to set up meetings with our partners and chat about what they're seeing in the industry, quarterly, and finding out more information from them. And having that support has been critical to me in my business, to stay on top of things, and having experts within our network about a range of different technologies and tools that are out there. And so that's always been key for us and for myself to stay on top of things. I think it's immersing yourself in them, and then it's proactively going and finding them through all sorts of different channels.
Awesome. Yeah, I find a lot of LinkedIn influencers or thought leaders are very helpful in like understanding what's going on. They're always resharing other people's showing off of what they're doing and exploring what the future of these technologies have coming up. YouTube's great, and a new one that I've really started to do, and I've built my own like agent around it, is using AI like ChatGTP or Claude or Perplexity, and ask them the questions because they're on top of it, and they're pulling in new data all the time, which is very helpful. I create a daily. Just an update of my own based on what AI can spit out for me. Obviously, you got to test it out, make sure things are, because sometimes it's not all true what it spits out, but there's a lot of education that can be pulled from it there. Great. So just to wrap things up, I'd love to leave everybody with one last question with you, Colton, and would love to hear your insight as you're a great thought leader. You've got your pulse on what brands are doing, what they're looking for, and Salt's an amazing agency, and I've noticed your digital team is really talented and really on top of things. I'd love to hear your big picture view of the future of brand engagement. One, like where you see it going. Two, what would you love to happen? Like what would be like your sci-fi futuristic perspective of brand engagement?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if I think about like where I see the next 5 years of marketing, we do at Salt, we get together twice a year, and one of our leaders here does like a trends presentation on kind of the state of the union about what's happening in advertising, what we should all be focusing on. And not to harp on it more, but AI is going to transform operationally and from an outcome perspective everything that we're doing in marketing. And I think initially there was a lot of fear about AI taking over positions, and I don't believe that to be the case. I think skilled people like everyone in this room, Justin, you and I, who know how to use AI, are going to be really the powerhouses of the industry going forward in 5 years. And if you think about generationally as well, generation beta, which is a funny name, but it's the kind of the cohort that everyone who's being born, starting in 2025 is going to be in, or the first generation who are going to be growing up with AI as 100% part of their life. They will never know a life where AI didn't exist. And if you think even further out from 5 years, you think 20 years, 10, 20 years from now, they're all going to be experts and will be coming into the workforce. And so everyone needs to start getting ahead of how they're using AI and their tools in order to be a skilled operator of AI. So I'd say that as my biggest recommendation of what everybody in the industry should be doing. I don't think that the job of a copywriter or a media buyer or a junior dev is going to be taken. I think those people with the power of AI are going to be able to, scale their careers and what they're doing, a lot faster, for sure. Cookieless world is continuing to come. That's a big one. So brands are still going to have a massive reliance and be thinking creatively about how to collect first and zero-party data. And so that priority isn't going anywhere. I'm curious to see if the pendulum swings back in any way eventually, but privacy is a massive concern and focus for consumers, and as a result, legislation and rules about how you collect data and what you can do with it. I think experiences are going to continue to dominate the brand and marketing world. I think kind of passive engagement isn't valuable from a branding perspective anymore, and consumers aren't really engaging in a passive way. And so the more that you can bring people into a branded experience and create deeper engagement, beyond simply driving past an out-of-home billboard, or Justin, we were talking about this yesterday, but when I first started out in late 2000s, 2010s, there were agencies whose sole purpose was to build display banners. Display banners were everywhere, especially kind of in automotive and travel. Nobody does those anymore. There was millions and millions of dollars that were invested in those types of ads, and those dollars are being put elsewhere. I think there's going to be a continued push on budgets. People are going to have to continue to do more with less, as brand marketers on the client side expect AI to make things more efficiently, and brands and consumers are going to have to think about. Marketers at agencies are going to have to think about how to effectively do that and how to effectively manage their clients. And if I can think about blue sky, what's the sci-fi world that I'd love to see, or where it might go. I don't know if 5 years is the time frame, but I think having AI more readily available in I'm going to say in the human body. I don't mean in the human body, but being able to access AI potentially not on a phone or not on a computer, but the evolution of wearable tech, I think, is going to be very, very interesting. We kind of saw it with the Meta glasses and different lenses, and I think those are going to continue to, whether you like them or not now, I think they're going to continue to be and play a big part in marketing as that technology evolves, as it gets smaller and doesn't look as bad as some of them look right now. I think that's what I'm really excited to see is what happens with watches, glasses, shoes, whatever. I think kind of the sky's the limit on that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I think most people here are really excited. The new Meta glasses, the Snap spectacles, and the evolution. The biggest thing working in VR and AR, I've always hear everyone says, they're like, I just hate these big ass headsets. I don't want to strap a toaster to my face, and I'm excited for it to be either glasses or contact lens and have that accessibility. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Colton. This was very educational and inspirational, and I speak for everybody here. Amazing, really engaging, as we hope to be with the name. Everyone who's watching, thanks for joining in. We will be having the next one at the end of February. More details to come. I'll be sending it out to our email lists on LinkedIn and keep you all informed. Anything you would like to say, Colton, before we close it off?
No, Justin, thanks for being a leader in the space. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Had a great time coming in and chatting today. Apologies, my voice is a little hoarse, but hope everyone goes out there and tries some new technologies, and I look forward to chatting and being at the next one of these events in late February, Justin.
Great. Thanks so much. And check us out at Ether, intoether.co, or hit us up on LinkedIn. We're always looking to continue the conversation.